The sky wasn't burning. It was splitting apart. Alien warships, cathedral-sized monuments of arrogance, were tearing open like paper under invisible pressure. Entire battle groups vanished mid-formation. No debris, no distress signals, just sudden absence. Fleets that had ruled the galaxy for a millennium were being erased faster than their admirals could finish issuing commands. Something had hit them. Something precise, something patient. And it was already inside their formation. War declaration transmitted 8 minutes ago. The alien high command expected panic. They expected scrambling defenses. They expected humanity to beg, bargain, or break. Instead, their forward armada collapsed. Not damaged, not overwhelmed. Deleted. 1,000 years of peace had convinced them humans were soft, complacent, unprepared. That assumption was their first fatal mistake. A dreadnought the size of a moon fractured down its centerline with surgical perfection. No explosion. No heroic resistance. Just a clean split, as if the universe itself rejected its existence. Tactical displays flickered. 40% of the invasion fleet disappeared in under 90 seconds. Officers screamed across encrypted channels as systems failed without warning. For the first time in 1,000 years, they felt it. Uncertainty. On Earth, there were no screams, no evacuation sirens, no emergency broadcasts. Humanity was watching, and then they laughed. Not madness, recognition. Finally. Because this war did not begin 8 minutes ago. It began the moment the Galactic Imperium decided peace meant weakness. The moment they mistook silence for submission. The moment they broke a 1,000-year truce, believing humanity had grown comfortable. They didn't realize peace had been our preparation. Now their fleets were collapsing under something they could not see, could not counter, could not survive. They declared war, and humanity answered with no mercy. For 1,000 years, the galaxy believed it understood humanity. We were catalogued, categorized, measured. A resilient species from a high-gravity world that had chosen diplomacy over domination. Trade partners, engineers, negotiators, predictable. They monitored our expansion routes. They analyzed our shipyards. They calculated our fleet capacity and logged our military inactivity. Their conclusion was unanimous. Humanity had grown comfortable. Peace had softened us. 1,000 uninterrupted years without major war meant our edge was gone. What they never understood was this peace was not softness. It was compression. While empires paraded fleets and flexed territorial control, we built quietly. We refined propulsion systems no one had seen. We developed countermeasures never publicly tested. We designed responses for threats that did not yet exist. Peace gave us time. Time gave us precision. Then the Imperium shattered the truce. A formal declaration. Legal language. Accusations of strategic deception. They framed invasion as necessary correction. They expected panic. They expected scrambling defenses. They expected humanity to break. They triggered something else entirely. If you are watching from a city that understands what war costs, from a country that has rebuilt after destruction, then you already feel what comes next. Before we continue, tell me your city and country in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. If you respect strategic power over empty threats, hit like. If you understand that peace only matters when you are capable of war, subscribe. Now watch carefully. Because what happened next didn't just end a war. It rewrote the hierarchy of the galaxy. The first wave of alien vessels entered the Sol perimeter in flawless formation, thousands of warships aligned with ceremonial precision. Their hulls reflected starlight like monuments carved for intimidation. This was not just an invasion. It was theater. They wanted humanity to see the scale, and understand the outcome before the first shot was fired. Their declaration transmitted moments later across every known human frequency. It accused Earth of long-term strategic deception, territorial manipulation, and hidden militarization. The Imperium claimed enforcement of galactic balance. It was a speech crafted to sound righteous. It was also a terrible mistake. 3 hours earlier, humanity had already detected their fleet at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. No global panic followed. No emergency broadcasts. Instead, a buried directive activated inside encrypted defense networks. Protocol: Black Horizon. The Imperium expected resistance near Mars orbit. Defensive lines, missile platforms, conventional engagement. Instead, their forward assault wing simply vanished. Not destroyed, not scattered. Erased. Alien command assumed cloaking technology or gravitational interference. Diagnostic sweeps found nothing. No radiation bloom. No energy discharge. No debris signature. Tactical officers recalculated and pushed the fleet forward. Then 30 more ships disappeared. Then 300. On Earth, military command centers were silent except for confirmation tones. Fleet analysts tracked disappearance markers across a holographic projection of the solar system. No one celebrated, no one panicked. This had been anticipated. They really thought we'd hesitate, one officer muttered. Imperium vessels began firing blindly into empty space. Plasma storms lit the void, striking nothing. Their sensors screamed inconsistencies. Shield matrices fluctuated without impact. Systems began failing from internal overload, as if physics itself had turned hostile. Fear entered their channels. Then the flagship fractured. The dreadnought symbol of 1,000 years of dominance split cleanly down its center line. No dramatic explosion. Just a perfect structural division, like a surgical incision across a god. Compartments depressurized. Command decks went dark. 40,000 officers were deleted in less than 10 seconds. Within 8 minutes of their official declaration, 60% of the invading armada no longer existed. The remaining commanders attempted emergency retreat. Warp drives spooled. Exit vectors calculated. And that was when Earth transmitted its first reply. Across every surviving Imperium channel, a single line appeared. You miscalculated. And beyond Pluto's orbit, something massive shifted trajectory, something the Imperium had never detected in 1,000 years of surveillance. Humanity's true fleet had not been stationed near Earth. It had been waiting in the dark, accelerating. Beyond Pluto's orbit, where the sun is nothing more than a distant wound in the dark, space began to distort. Not warp signatures, not hyperspace tunnels. Something quieter, heavier. A gravitational pressure that bent light inward as if the void itself were inhaling. The Imperium's surviving scanners caught it too late. A formation emerged not from jump space, but from engineered silence. Matte black hulls absorbed starlight instead of reflecting it. No banners, no insignias, no ceremonial arrogance. Just angular constructs built for a single purpose: erasure. For 1,000 years the galaxy tracked Earth's visible Navy trade escorts, defensive cruisers, diplomatic carriers. They logged tonnage, firepower, response times. They concluded humanity had downsized. What they never detected were the shipyards hidden in interstellar drift zones, the fleets built without transponders, the war machines designed not for intimidation, but finality. The first human capital vessel fired without visible discharge. No flare, no projectile. A distortion ripple passed through 3 retreating Imperium cruisers. They didn't explode. They inverted. Hull plating folded inward. Reactor cores collapsed into themselves. Internal gravity surged beyond containment. The ships compressed into metallic fragments smaller than escape pods. Deleted. Imperium Command screamed for countermeasures. They launched antimatter spreads. They fired gravity spears. They flooded the region with electromagnetic storms. Nothing locked on target. Human vessels did not register normally on their instruments. They appeared for milliseconds, then shifted position through controlled micro-singularity displacement, not teleportation. Repositioning reality. A surviving alien admiral attempted retreat authorization. His fleet had already lost 70% capacity. His tactical grid looked like a broken constellation. Then his communications officer froze. Admiral, Earth is broadcasting again. Across every frequency, human transmission overrode encryption with surgical precision. You declared war under the assumption we desired survival more than resolution. A pause. You were wrong. The second wave of human vessels advanced. These were not warships in the traditional sense. They carried no visible cannons, no protruding artillery arrays. Their weapons were embedded into their architecture field manipulators that altered gravitational constants in localized zones. An Imperium battleship fired point-blank at one of them. The human vessel absorbed the energy surge, then returned it multiplied. The alien battleship shattered into incandescent fragments that scattered like dust. Panic infected the remaining invaders. Formation discipline collapsed. Ships collided in retreat. Officers abandoned protocols. The Imperium, conquerors of 600 systems, were reduced to survivors running from something they could not understand. And still, Earth did not advance toward their core territories. Not yet. Instead, humanity targeted every forward command relay, every logistics node, every reinforcement corridor. Supply lines broke. Navigation networks collapsed. Entire sectors of Imperium space went blind. This was not rage. It was disassembly. But deep inside the Imperium capital, an emergency council was forming. Ancient commanders who had not seen war in centuries were being summoned, and they were about to authorize something humanity had anticipated long before this invasion began. Something desperate, something irreversible, and when they activated it, humanity would stop laughing. Deep beneath the Imperium capital, past ceremonial halls and ancestral vaults, beyond layers of shields meant to survive stellar collapse, the High War Council stood before a sealed chamber that had not been opened in 900 years. The inscription above it read, "For existential threats only." They had once used it to erase an entire species. Now they called humanity the same. Supreme Executor Vale's claws hovered over the authorization console. His hands were steady. His voice was not. "We underestimated them," he admitted. Silence answered him. He continued anyway. "We will not make that terrible mistake twice." The chamber doors unlocked. Inside rested the Oblivion Array. Not a fleet, not a bomb. a quantum destabilizer engineered to fracture a star's core from interstellar distance. One activation could trigger a chain reaction inside a solar system's primary star, turning fusion unstable, causing collapse or supernova. It had ended wars before they began. No mercy, no survivors. Vale did not hesitate. Coordinates, Sol System. Target, Earth's star. The activated. Across the void, an invisible lattice of entangled particles aligned around Sol like a tightening net. At first, nothing changed. Then solar activity spiked. Mass ejections intensified. Fusion irregularities began forming at the core. On Luna, inside Earth's Strategic Defense Command, alarms screamed. Dr. Elena Mikhailov didn't panic. She stared at the telemetry feed for less than 3 seconds before speaking. "They're collapsing the star." Around her, officers froze. She didn't. Activate Prometheus. The Imperium expected chaos, evacuation, desperation. Instead, Earth's solar output stabilized, then reversed. The entangled lattice around Sol began to flicker, not because it failed, because something was overriding it. Prometheus was not a weapon. It was a contingency, built after humanity's first detection of stellar manipulation technology centuries earlier. A counterfield system hidden inside Mercury's orbital shell. A lattice woven into the sun itself through controlled fusion engineering. When the Oblivion Array tried to destabilize Sol, Prometheus locked onto the signal source and followed it home. In the Imperium capital, alarms erupted. Vale's pupils contracted. Why is the array reflecting output? Technicians screamed over each other. It's not reflecting. It's mapping. No, it's redirecting. On the holographic projection, a new lattice began forming. Around the Imperium's own star. Panic tore through the chamber. Disable it. We can't. The entanglement was symmetrical. The moment they targeted Sol, they created a two-way bridge. Prometheus had not merely blocked the attack. It copied the signature, scaled it, and returned it amplified. The Imperium's star began to destabilize. Vale understood then. Humanity had not laughed because they were arrogant. They laughed because they had already solved this war before it started. Outside, their sun convulsed. Core fluctuations accelerated. In orbit, millions looked upward as their sky began to change color. And across the galaxy, every long-range observatory detected it. An ancient Imperium star on the verge of catastrophic collapse. But Earth did not trigger detonation. Not yet. Instead, one final transmission reached Vale's chamber. You attempted extinction. A pause. We are deciding whether you deserve it. And for the first time in recorded Imperium history, their leaders understood true doom. The Imperium's star convulsed like a dying heart. Solar flares tore across nearby orbital cities. Planetary shields strained under radiation spikes. Civilian evacuation channels flooded with screams the High Council could not mute fast enough. The sky above their capital bled violet streaks of crimson and white. For the first time in 1,000 years, they were not the dominant force in the room. On Earth, the Global Defense Assembly convened in absolute silence. No shouting, no theatrical outrage, just data projected across a suspended orbital map. Probability of Imperium stellar collapse, 87%. Estimated casualties, billions. Time until irreversible fusion, cascade, 11 minutes. Humanity now possessed the power to erase an empire with a single confirmation. General Adrien Cole stood with his hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the projection of the Imperium's destabilizing star. "They targeted our sun," he said quietly. "They attempted extinction. No one disagreed. Protocol demanded proportional response. But proportional did not mean identical." Dr. Mikhailov broke the silence. "If we allow collapse, their civilization is deleted in under an hour." She did not sound emotional. She sounded precise. Complete systemic failure, infrastructure collapse, planetary sterilization in inner orbit. The word hung unspoken between them. Genocide. A younger council member leaned forward. "They would have done it to us?" Cole nodded once. "Yes." He did not smile. "And that is exactly why we cannot become them." Across the void, Supreme Executor Vale watched his star unravel. His claws dug into the stone of the command chamber. His empire had conquered 600 systems. They had erased civilizations that resisted. Now they were the ones begging for survival. Another human transmission cut through the chaos. "You declared war believing peace had weakened us." Static crackled. "You were wrong." On Earth, a new directive appeared on the Council interface. Operation Severance. Instead of triggering stellar collapse, Prometheus shifted modulation frequency. The destabilization field surrounding the Imperium star recalibrated not toward detonation, but toward containment. The collapse halted. Barely. Their star stabilized at the brink of death. A reminder etched into physics itself. Then came the second phase. Human strike fleets moved with mechanical inevitability. Not toward civilian worlds. Not toward population centers. They targeted shipyards, weapons platforms, military academies, command nexuses. In under 1 hour, every offensive asset the Imperium possessed was dismantled. Fleet production capacity broke. Military command network erased. Long-range strike capability deleted. Across every remaining Imperium channel, Earth transmitted its final terms. "You will dismantle your expansion doctrine. You will dissolve your war authority. You will exist under enforced limitation." A pause. "You will remember this day for the next 1,000 years." Vale collapsed to one knee as confirmation reports flooded in. Their fleets gone. Their strategic superiority broken. Their star alive only because humanity allowed it. He had believed humans naive, soft, predictable. Now he understood the terrible mistake. They had declared war on a species that prepared during peace. And humanity had shown restraint not because they lacked power, but because they chose to. And that choice was more terrifying than annihilation. The laughter spread long before the official recordings were released. It wasn't hysterical. It wasn't arrogant. It wasn't madness. It was recognition. Across military command centers, orbital stations, civilian networks, the moment the Imperium's fleets began to vanish, the same realization surfaced everywhere at once. They finally crossed the line. For 1,000 years, humanity had signed treaties knowing they were temporary. We shook hands while running simulations in parallel. We traded resources while modeling extinction scenarios. We participated in galactic diplomacy while constructing countermeasures for threats no one else believed necessary. Peace was never trust. Peace was rehearsal. The Imperium had mistaken human restraint for hesitation. They saw fewer visible fleets and assumed decline. They observed open research exchanges and assumed transparency. They logged centuries without expansionist war and concluded weakness. They misread stillness. Stillness was compression. In the aftermath of severance, human strike fleets withdrew from Imperium borders without ceremony. No occupation forces. No victory parades. No territorial claims. The message was deliberate. We do not conquer. We conclude. Across the galaxy, minor powers scrambled to reevaluate their defense doctrines. Long-standing empires initiated emergency audits of their intelligence archives. Every species that had ever quietly discussed eventual human containment deleted those files within hours. Because now they understood something chilling. Humanity does not escalate emotionally. We escalate conclusively. Supreme Executor Vale addressed what remained of his High Council under a dimmed sky. Their star, permanently scarred by the near collapse, glowed an unstable shade, an eternal reminder. He spoke without ceremony. We declared war believing they would break. He paused. They did not. Silence answered him. They broke us. On Earth, General Cole recorded the official closeout of the conflict. Imperium offensive capacity neutralized. Stellar destabilization reversed. Civilian casualties, 0. He leaned back, studying the projection of the solar system calm, intact, undamaged. They wanted extinction. His jaw tightened. They received limitation. The laughter that echoed in early recordings wasn't cruelty. It was relief. Relief that the waiting was over. Relief that the 1,000-year preparation had not been unnecessary. Relief that the weapons humanity built in silence would remain mostly unused because the demonstration was enough. The galaxy had been shown what happens when someone mistakes patience for passivity. Historians would later mark the conflict as the 8-minute war, a war that never reached Earth's atmosphere, a war that ended before the invaders understood the battlefield, a war that proved something irreversible. Humanity had surpassed reactive warfare. We now dictated consequence. And somewhere deep within sealed human archives, a new protocol was quietly logged. Not Black Horizon, not Prometheus, something else, activated only if the galaxy ever forgot, because peace still existed, but now it existed under new terms, not because humanity feared war, but because everyone else finally did. And that was why we laughed. 1,000 years of peace did not weaken humanity. It refined us. While others celebrated dominance, we studied inevitability. While others trusted treaties, we built contingencies. The Imperium believed breaking the truce would intimidate us into submission. Instead, they signed their own strategic extinction. We could have erased them completely. Their star was seconds from collapse. Their civilization balanced on the edge of permanent deletion. But annihilation was not the lesson. Restraint was, because true power is not proven by destruction. It is proven by choosing when not to destroy. The galaxy will remember the day humanity laughed. not because we enjoyed war, but because we had prepared so thoroughly that war no longer frightened us. And if another empire ever decides to test that preparation, they will not receive a warning. They will receive confirmation